December 4th, 2024, New York's financial district seemed to stop breathing when a series of gunshots echoed outside a luxury hotel. The man who was shot, one of the most powerful figures in the U.S. insurance industry, Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare. Within minutes, he collapsed with 3 bullets in his chest, and the shooter vanished without a trace. But what truly shocked the entire nation wasn't just the death of a CEO, it was the identity of the killer, a young genius born into wealth with no criminal record and a top graduate from an Ivy League school. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss the world's most bizarre true crime stories. The CEO collapses, a death full of questions. On the morning of December 4th, 2020, as New York City was just beginning another bustling day, a shocking assassination unfolded in the heart of the financial district. The victim, Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare, one of the largest health insurance companies in the United States, and a key subsidiary of the corporate giant United Health Group. Thompson had just exited the Plaza Grand Hotel, where he had attended a closed-door leadership conference and was about to step into his waiting car. Suddenly, a man dressed in black emerged from behind the roadside trees, pulled out a handgun, and fired 3 shots straight into Thompson's chest. The entire attack lasted less than 10 seconds. Thompson collapsed on the spot, unable to utter a word. His driver and nearby security staff were thrown into panic, but the shooter immediately fled, vanishing into the chaos of the street. Security footage from the hotel entrance captured a blurry image of the suspect, a tall, slender man dressed entirely in dark clothing, wearing a beanie and a face covering. He ran across the street and disappeared, heading northbound toward Manhattan. Though his face was not clearly visible, his movements were sharp and deliberate, as if every step had been meticulously planned. As police cordoned off the scene for investigation, they stumbled upon a chilling detail. 3 shell casings left on the pavement. Each casing was engraved with a single word: deny, defend, depose. These weren't random. They weren't just ordinary English words. They carried weight, a hidden message, a manifesto, or perhaps a declaration of war. Deny, defend, depose. Was this a warning, a political statement, or a cry of rage aimed at a broken system? Lead investigator Joseph Kenny could only say one thing at the press briefing: "We've never seen anything like this. This wasn't just a murder, this was a message." And so the death of a CEO in the heart of New York turned out to be only the beginning, the first piece of a mystery that even the city's most seasoned investigators have yet to unravel. The nationwide manhunt. He's young and extremely dangerous. Immediately after the assassination of Brian Thompson, the NYPD launched a full-scale manhunt in coordination with the FBI and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. This was no longer just a homicide, it was the targeted assassination of one of the most influential figures in America's healthcare industry. A bold, broad daylight attack in the heart of New York City, clearly not the work of an amateur. Investigators quickly began reviewing hundreds of security camera clips from around the crime scene. Although the suspect was fully covered, a street camera on Lexington Avenue caught a crucial detail. The man jumped into a taxi just minutes after the shooting. GPS data from the cab revealed he had traveled to a small bus station in Upper Manhattan, where he got out and vanished without a trace. A federal arrest warrant was immediately issued. Alerts were sent to all neighboring states, including Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Connecticut. But for 5 straight days, there were no solid leads. The killer seemed to have evaporated. No biological evidence, no phone signals, no credit card activity. Social media completely silent. It was almost a perfect disappearance until day 5. At a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, a cashier noticed a young man who looked eerily similar to the composite sketch circulated by the police. He appeared tired, solitary, and kept his cap pulled low over his face. He carried no phone and avoided eye contact. The cashier, a fan of true crime shows, sensed something was off and quietly called local authorities. Less than 20 minutes later, police arrived on the scene. When asked for identification, the man remained calm, speaking with an East Coast accent, and produced a New Jersey ID, but upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a fake. His true identity, Luigi Mangione, the prime suspect in the assassination of UnitedHealthcare's CEO. During the search of his backpack, officers made a chilling discovery: a homemade semi-automatic pistol, 3D printed components, a suppressor, black clothing, and a face mask matching the one described by eyewitnesses. More disturbingly, he carried multiple forged IDs. It is clearly prepared to remain on the run. Luigi was immediately taken into custody and transferred to a Pennsylvania detention center, awaiting extradition to New York to face first-degree murder charges. But this raises a chilling question. Why would a young, well-educated man choose to act like a trained assassin? And more importantly, what drove him to meticulously plan the murder of one of the most powerful CEOs in America? The killer's identity shocks America. When the true identity of the suspect was revealed, America was stunned. No one could have imagined that Luigi Mangione, the man who had just assassinated one of the most powerful CEOs in the healthcare industry, was a 26-year-old with an almost flawless record. He wasn't homeless, had no criminal background, and had never been diagnosed with any mental illness. On the contrary, Luigi came from what many would consider the model upper-class American family. Mangione was born and raised in Towson, a wealthy suburban enclave just outside Baltimore, Maryland. His parents owned a portfolio of successful local businesses, ranging from real estate to biotech, and were known in the community as respected, influential figures. The Mangione family was often seen at charity galas and had strong ties within the finance and academic circles of the northeastern United States. From an early age, Luigi was regarded as a tech prodigy. He attended Gilman School, one of Maryland's most prestigious and historic private institutions. There, he not only excelled academically, but also won national awards in programming and mathematics. Teachers described him as a student ahead of his time, eerily calm, and relentlessly curious about how the world works. In 2016, Luigi was accepted into the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, an Ivy League institution that admits only the nation's brightest minds. He pursued a dual degree program, earning both a bachelor's and a master's in computer science, with a thesis focused on artificial intelligence and personal data security. After graduating, Luigi joined TrueCar, a major tech company in the online automotive marketplace based in California. He worked as a data engineer responsible for optimizing vehicle pricing algorithms, a role that required top-level analytical thinking and strict data security protocols. Up until his arrest, Luigi had no criminal record, no history of violence. The only incident on file was a minor administrative citation in late 2023 when he was caught trespassing in a restricted area near the Nuuanu Lookout in Hawaii. The matter was treated as a non-criminal infraction and was swiftly closed. What shocked both investigators and the general public wasn't just his background and education, But the fact that Luigi had never shown any signs of instability, no mental illness, no red flags, not one of the dozens of people who had studied, worked, or lived near him ever suspected he was capable of violence. The question now is no longer just who is he, but rather what happened to someone like him? What could drive a person once poised for brilliance and success to descend into darkness and become a killer? And perhaps more chillingly, was he acting alone, or was someone or something pulling the strings? Signs of a deep, quiet rage. During the search of Luigi Mangione's backpack after his arrest, police found more than just weapons, disguises, and forged documents. They also discovered something that shifted the entire direction of the investigation: a folded piece of handwritten paper tucked inside a small, coverless notebook. The handwriting was clean, precise, almost unnaturally perfect. It contained only a single sentence: "I apologize for any violence and pain caused, but it had to happen." The words seemed simple, but the message was disturbingly complex. It wasn't a confession, it wasn't a final goodbye, it was an acknowledgement, cold and composed, that a terrible act had been carried out with intent, and the writer was fully aware of what they were doing. Lead investigator Joseph Kenny remarked, "This wasn't a crime of impulse. Every step was calculated. He didn't flee out of fear, he was following a plan." As detectives dug deeper into Luigi's background, subtle clues began to emerge, forming a broader, darker picture. One such detail, initially dismissed as symbolic, came back into focus: the 3 bullet casings left at the crime scene, engraved with the words "deny," "defend," "depose." These words weren't just a cryptic slogan or empty threat. A forensic analyst on the team made a chilling connection. They mirrored the structure of a well-known book published in 2010 titled "Delay, Deny, Defend: Why Insurance Companies Don't Pay Claims and What You Can Do About It" by attorney James M.T. The book caused a major stir when it exposed how insurance companies in the U.S. deliberately delay, reject, and legally justify withholding claims, often at the expense of everyday policyholders. This discovery led investigators to ask, had Luigi read this book? Was he or someone close to him a victim of insurance denial? Or was this something far more symbolic, a personal declaration of war against an industry where numbers and technicalities often determine who lives, who dies, and who gets left behind? There was no manifesto, no long explanation, just one handwritten line. Short, emotionless, yet heavy with rage, and 3 spent casings left like dark artistic breadcrumbs on Wall Street. Whatever Luigi Mangione's true motive may be, one thing is now clear: he did not kill for money. He did not act out of sudden anger. This was likely a murder to send a message, a calculated, radical form of protest, an act of extreme resistance cloaked in violence. Was this an ant system as an assassination? From the moment Luigi Mangione's identity was revealed, investigators and the U.S. media were flooded with one pressing question: what was the real motive behind the assassination? A young prodigy, highly educated, born into wealth, former employee at a prominent tech company. Why would someone like that murder a CEO in the healthcare industry? What could have driven him to cross the line into violence? The first theory investigators pursued was that Mangione may have been a disgruntled policyholder. Perhaps he or someone close to him had suffered from a personal encounter with the deeply flawed and often cruel American healthcare insurance system. In the U.S., countless families face financial ruin because their claims are denied, sometimes for life-saving procedures. For many Americans, insurance giants are not seen as protectors of health, but as cold bureaucratic machines built to delay, deny, and defend their way out of paying. The three engraved words on the shell casings, deny, defend, depose, could easily be interpreted as a condemnation of that system, or even a personal declaration of war on the entire insurance industry. However, some psychological experts offered a different take. What if this was the act of a mentally unstable individual, a man of extraordinary intellect, locked in an internal world of contradiction and alienation, who sought to make his mark not through a book or startup, but through bloodshed? By targeting a symbol of corporate power, Mangione may have wanted to force the world to remember his name. Several psychologists noted that he might have operated under a personal logic, a framework in which murder was rationalized as justice or sacrifice for a larger cause. The note he left behind, "I apologize, Beb, but it had to happen," only strengthens that interpretation. Meanwhile, his family remained silent. A single internal source reported that his parents were devastated and in disbelief. They refused to speak to the press, asking for privacy and protection. Neighbors described them as a model family, private, well educated, and reserved. But that silence has only fueled public suspicion. Is the family hiding something? Or had Luigi been harboring a slow burning rage for years, hidden so well that no one ever saw it coming? As of now, no definitive motive has been confirmed, but whether this was a systemic rebellion or the manifestation of a disturbed mind, one thing is certain: this case has shaken American society to its core, because it shows that even those who seem flawless, polished, successful, promising, can become lethal threats when they fall into darkness. Charges and the road to trial. After his arrest in Pennsylvania, Luigi Mangione was denied bail and formally transferred to New York, where he now faces a series of serious criminal charges. According to the indictment released by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, this was not simply a murder, it was a premeditated, organized act that may be legally classified as an act of domestic terrorism aimed at a symbolic figure in America's financial and healthcare systems. The most severe charge Mangione faces is first-degree murder, reserved for killings that are deliberate, pre-planned, and target a specific individual. This is the highest level homicide charge in New York State, and if convicted, Mangione could be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In addition to murder, Mangione has been charged with multiple aggravating offenses, including illegal possession and use of firearms. Inside Mangione's backpack, authorities found a homemade 3D printed gun and a suppressor, both strictly banned in New York. The presence of unregistered weapons significantly elevates the charges, with potential prosecution at both state and federal levels. Forgery and use of false identification. During his time on the run, Mangione used a fake New Jersey ID to rent lodging, buy interstate bus tickets, and access various public services. Forgery of identification, especially when tied to criminal evasion, is a federal offense and further complicates the case. Obstruction of justice and federal fugitive flight. By fleeing New York after the assassination, using public transit, false identities, and living in secrecy, Mangione is now also charged with intentional evasion. Under federal law, this is a separate crime, especially severe when the suspect is armed and wanted for murder. A preliminary hearing is expected to take place within the next 3 to 6 months, but legal experts predict the trial could last for years due to the unprecedented complexity of the case. Key factors include Unclear motive, possibly tied to ideology or psychological disturbance. The symbolic status of the victim, an insurance CEO often seen as a controversial figure in public discourse. The legal precedent surrounding the use of 3D printed weapons in a targeted assassination, raising new ethical and constitutional debates never before tested in U.S. courts. Some attorneys have called this a landmark case of intellectual criminality, where the perpetrator isn't driven by poverty, addiction, or prior criminal behavior, but by intellect, strategy, and a chilling knowledge of how to manipulate legal loopholes to execute a high profile crime. One particularly disturbing detail was noted by Altoona police. Mangione offered no resistance during his arrest. He remained composed, cooperative, and even smiled faintly as he was handcuffed. This eerie calm has led many to ask, did he see the assassination not as a crime but as a mission accomplished? The answers remain elusive, but one thing is certain. The trial of Luigi Mangione is set to become one of the most closely watched legal proceedings in modern American history. Final thoughts, questions still without answers. Throughout the investigation, prosecution, and waves of public reaction, the case of Luigi Mangione has come to represent more than just a criminal act. It has transcended the boundaries of a typical murder and become a symbol of a modern fear. What happens when someone with exceptional intelligence, prestigious background, and elite education suddenly turns into a killer? What truly happened inside Luigi's mind? Was it a long suppressed rage, a quiet discontent with the system he once belonged to? Or was it simply the unraveling of a psychologically unstable individual, too intelligent for the warning signs to ever be detected? No one can say for sure why Mangione chose to gun down a powerful CEO in front of cameras in the heart of a major city. There was no confession, no manifesto, only a single handwritten line. I'm sorry, miss, but it had to happen. And three shell casings inscribed with cryptic words left behind in a crowded street. His family, the ones who once held high hopes for their only son, have remained completely silent. Former classmates, teachers, and colleagues all echoed the same disbelief. I never imagined he could do something like this. And perhaps that silence is the most chilling part of all. It reminds us that we may never truly know what lies inside someone, even if they live beside us, speak politely, succeed professionally, and smile gently. The story of Luigi Mangione forces America to reckon with difficult questions about the insurance industry, about the systemic injustices people quietly endure, about brilliant minds pushed into dark corners, and about how intelligence, when misdirected, can become one of the most dangerous weapons of all. No one knows for certain if Luigi acted entirely alone, or if his actions were rooted in a deeper ideology or connected to an underground movement. No one knows if during his years studying, working, and living in major cities, he ever dropped a hint, or if he was simply too smart, too quiet, and too well disguised to be noticed. This case is far from over, and even when a verdict is reached, it's likely that some questions will never be answered. What do you think about the story of Luigi Mangione? Was this the act of a mentally unstable man, or a declaration of war from a lost genius against a broken system? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. If this story gave you something to think about, hit like. And don't forget to subscribe for more shocking and mysterious true crime cases from around the world.